The Mass Homeschool Organization of Parent Educators Convention is coming up April 23rd to the 25th in Worcester at the DCU Center. Okay. You can see their website for more information at masshope.org. Voyagers in Action is hosting open houses on Wednesday, April 22nd at 10 a.m. and on Sunday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. They're also hosting a spring dance and game party for homeschool teens on Saturday, April 18th from 7 to 11 p.m. And then later in May, they're having a masquerade-themed formal on May 9th. You can see their website or Facebook page for more details. All right, so that is our next events for this week. Next, we're going to go to our topic. We're trying to deal with some technical difficulties. Carrie will join me in a moment.
All right.
We came up with the idea of diversity in homeschooling for a topic. And I actually initially came up with it because there have been a lot of articles recently published about minorities in the homeschooling world. So it became interesting to me to talk about. Welcome back, Carrie.
Hello. I can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
All right, excellent.
So yes, a little bit of technical difficulty. Hopefully it's not affecting the show that much. But if it is, well, it is what it is. Anyway, so diversity in homeschooling. So we live in Somerville, and the school system here is really diverse. We have folks from all over the place, and I think Somerville has had that for quite some time. And I personally sometimes wonder if homeschooling has, prevented my kids from meeting a more diverse variety of people. In my past, I've had a lot of friends of different races and nationalities, economic brackets, but our social and school life lacks the level of diversity that I had been adjusted to in the past. I don't think my children treat people of other races or nationalities or economic brackets differently. We've been among friends, that speak other languages to each other, things like that. We don't blink an eye about that. We've known and played with kids who dress differently, who have mixed race or mixed gender families. And so, just a part of living in the Boston area, I think we're accustomed to people of all different types, lots of different types of families.
Yes.
So I've also made attempts to point out lack of representation of race and gender to my kids when I've noticed it, and I think my older child especially definitely pays attention these days. And so we decided to share our topic a little early this time, and it generated a lot of discussion. So that's been really neat and fun. And like I said before, thought-provoking.
Yeah. And do you want to say a word about the language using as we talk about this topic?
It's a difficult topic to talk about. It can be tricky. I mean, I think sometimes the way we express ourselves, the language we use, can be just a stumbling block, an obstacle in and of itself, whereas, a sentiment might be true at heart, but the language can seem, offensive to people. And and I want to acknowledge that we're going to do our best here. Yeah. We're not perfect. I don't think either of us could be considered racist, but I will admit to that I myself have discovered sometimes that I'm ignorant of certain issues that other people might face that just aren't on my radar screen. But I try to learn more, and I like to be exposed to those differences that I hadn't noticed.
I think it's impossible for any one person to be knowledgeable about all cultures and all races.
Absolutely.
Everyone has some ignorance about something.
Right.
And so I think during this next hour, when we talk about this, I think the listeners and us need to be open to hearing what someone is saying.
Respectful.
Be open to what they might be saying and go from there.
Right.
And we also want to keep this discussion to homeschooling and diversity. So, if we open the boundaries and just say diversity in general, my gosh, we'd be here for weeks.
Indeed.
And I am ill-equipped to handle something like that.
Yeah.
So if we can keep the discussion within the homeschooling community.
Specifically, yes, to the local homeschooling community.
And I just also want to say one thing about the meaning of diversity, because there's so many different definitions of the word.
Yeah.
So this show is going to be about whatever you think diversity is. It could be race, it could be religion, it could be philosophies of homeschool.
Yeah.
There's plenty of those.
Economic background.
Absolutely. So we want to keep it to homeschooling, and then whatever you think diversity is, let us know what your thoughts are. You can call us here in the station at 617-454-4BFR or Skype at Boston Free Radio. You can also send us an email at homeschoolradio999@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page, Homeschool Radio, on Facebook.
Yes. I suppose the way to weigh in with the least exposure would be to our email.
Right.
Because only we can see that. And it's really, sometimes people have a hard time really being out there, putting themselves forward when, they want to talk about something they've experienced or something that they've witnessed. And
we won't say names. If you email us at homeschoolradio999@gmail, we will not use your name.
And so, despite the diversity of Somerville schools, I do feel like the homeschooling community is a little more homogenous. There are definitely a lot of different families, but for the vast majority, I would say we have, Caucasian faces out there.
I agree.
But it sounds like minorities are really making up a big gain.
And we have some news articles about that.
And we're going to share those with you in a little bit. We have a break coming up. We're going to catch our wits about us with our technical stuff and be right back. Thank you.
All right. That song goes out to a close family member. I hope she's listening right now. I love that song, but...
it's not their most, Neil Diamond's most popular, well-known song. So it's kind of fun to play a little alternative. We're going to take a little break, station ID, and we'll be right back. Make that a PSA.
Bill Nussbaum here on the Bluegrass Review. Our show has the big bluegrass hits and the little song gems. Plus, interviews and features that tell what's happening. We've got the old stuff, the new stuff, and of course, the hard stuff. Sunday from 10 till noon Eastern on BostonFreeRadio.com.
And you know what the music means.
It's news time. So, I posted a whole bunch of articles on our Facebook page this week, and probably way too many and long ones that have to do with minorities in the homeschooling world as it relates to our subject. And according to the National Center for Education Statistics, as of 2012, 3% of the school-age population homeschools nationally. Of those, 68% are white, 8% are black, 15% are Hispanic, and 4% are Asian or Pacific Islander. So the article that got me interested in the diversity as a topic was in the Atlantic in February on the 17th. And the title of the article is "The Rise of Homeschooling Among Black Families." In it, the author, Jessica Huseman, states that black students make up an estimated 10% of the homeschooling population, which is, 2% more than the 2012 statistics. I'm not really sure, where she got 10%, but I'm certain that she checked her data, but she says that studies indicate black families are more likely to cite the culture of low expectations for African American students or dissatisfaction with how their children, especially boys, are treated in schools. The same article and another from the Washington Post from the 10th of April, which is entitled Racism in Schools is Pushing More Black Families to Homeschool Their Children. They both mention the tendency of schools to lean toward Eurocentric curricula, and that, homeschooling allows for more in-depth cultural study. But there are some issues when it comes to homeschooling that we're reading about regarding, for example, betrayal. And I know you had something that you had highlighted in the article about an interesting family that they covered in the article that chose to homeschool.
Yeah, this is the same article that she just cited is from The Atlantic. And all of these articles are on our Facebook page if you're interested. In the article, they spoke with a woman, Paula Penn-Nibritt, an African-American scholar and writer who homeschooled her children in the 90s. This struggle hits very close to home. Her husband's uncle, James Nabritt, argued Brown v. Board of Education in front of the Supreme Court alongside Thurgood Marshall. He later served as the president of Howard University. When Penn-Nabritt decided to pull her 3 sons from public school, it angered many of her black friends. A lot of people felt that because my family was intimately involved in the effort to integrate schools, that for me to pull my children out of schools was a betrayal of all that work, she said. But it really wasn't. The case had nothing to do with what I, as a parent, decide I want for my child. That decision meant the state can't decide to give me less than, but I can decide I want more. And I guess that's a fairly common sentiment in the African-American homeschooling community.
Yeah.
Or not the homeschooling community, but whether to homeschool or not.
Right.
It's a consideration.
Yeah.
And I should say right now, I feel, this is a little personal note, it feels strange to talk about this because I don't know firsthand what it's like. We're actually reading these articles.
Yes.
I'm white. When Lauren first brought this up, I told her that's kind of how I felt. I felt a little bit uncomfortable. And she said, well, Carrie, you come from a diverse family. And I said, what? Because I'm from the South? And she said, no. Because my husband is half black and half white. So my children are 1/4. And I guess I just never think about it.
Yeah.
Intellectually, of course, I know that.
Yeah.
And I've taught my children. Mm-hmm. They know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something that comes up every day.
Right.
In fact, it rarely comes up.
Yeah.
And so I guess I have a little bit of a right to talk about this stuff.
Right.
Anyway, so back to this issue. And this came up in a couple of other articles, this idea that the African-American community had fought so hard to get into the schools.
Right. Why leave? Yeah.
And I kind of understand how that would feel like a betrayal.
Yes. But at the same time, the culture of testing and all that stuff, a lot of us don't fit into that mold. Mm-hmm. So another thing in The Atlantic that I noticed was that they said, according to the Department of Education, less than 2% of current classroom teachers nationwide are African American males.
That was astounding to read.
Yeah.
Really astounding. And it makes sense that if you go to a school and there's no one like you teaching,
yes, how
that must feel.
Yes, must be a divide.
Yeah.
Of some form. So it's really interesting. We solicit a lot of comments about this. We're going to take a little shift here. We definitely have some more bits and pieces that we pulled from the articles. And so we have some emails and comments that we received. And
we would like to hear more. In fact, if you don't either email us or Skype us or call us, we could play Justin Bieber.
Sure.
I think we could find Justin Bieber in here. So I'm just warning you.
Yeah.
If you don't want to hear Justin Bieber, then call or write us.
Listen in, people. Chime
Listen
in. A lot of people talk to me out in the parks and things about that. So
yep. So don't be shy.
So yes, please do join us for our show here.
But yes, we did get some emails from people, and I really thank them for giving us their opinion. And one person wrote in and says, this was very interesting. This person was part of an exercise about identity. The group leader put up different signs around the room: gender, religion, race, career, nationality, family status. People had to stand under the sign by which they most strongly identified themselves. No white person stood under race, even as we switched to our second strongest marker of identity, and third and fourth. It never occurred to me that whiteness could be a marker of identity, except perhaps for white supremacists. So I'm surprised that anyone would be offended by someone saying they wanted to escape the overwhelming. Okay, so
so we had another person who said that they're in a community that's very white, and it's caused a little bit of controversy because I think of the language used, but if you interchange, it's understandable that, again, like I've said, the language can be an obstacle. I think that becomes a stumbling block to talking about diversity and racism in general. Just, obviously this past year has been sort of an awakening in relations around the country. So bringing it back to homeschooling, we had some other comments. We had a person who moved out of the city and found that the community that they moved in was not nearly as diverse, and they sought out a school that was pretty diverse for their community, but they were considering homeschooling. And from what they've witnessed, primarily Caucasian people, but they also felt like it was, economically middle upper class. And I definitely have noticed that, there's really a wide range of people on, the economic spectrum.
That's true.
I know people who homeschool on a shoestring.
Right.
And I know people who pay for really awesome classes day in and day out all week long. It takes all kinds. And in the city, you can spend quite a bit of money if you want to, shuttle the kids around. I know my neighbor, his daughter is an adult, and he said, once she was beyond an elementary age, most of his time was spent in the car shuttling her around to her different classes. And so we definitely have that. And, it sounds like in the future, things are going to change. So it's going to be really interesting to see over the next decade how the face of our homeschooling community will change. And I look forward to it.
Oh, myself. Yeah, I do too. And going back to what the person who wrote in was saying, that there's more diversity in the city, but it's a hard place to be in when you value diversity. You want to be around it, so you'd maybe want to be in the city. However, there are things that you want that are only found in outside of the city.
Right.
So where do you live?
Like a yard.
A yard.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to compromise, and it's a hard spot to be in. I think that's one of the things that this person was saying.
Yep. And we had another person that wrote in and talked about, she's actually a minority that lives in a mostly white town. And so she had a daughter that was interested in dance class, and she decided to go to a neighboring town with a little bit more diverse makeup. And so, her daughter enjoys a class with a lot more children who look like her. And so, made suggestions like this to seek out classes in different areas to sort of expose your kids beyond what might be a homogenous community that you live in. So we're going to take another break. We're going to do a PSA song and a station ID, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on Homeschool Radio.
Do you suffer from the heartbreak of brain rot, feeling bored, sluggish, listless, not had a new idea in days? Using electronic gizmos without a clue why they work? Now there's help. Ham Radio, guaranteed to stimulate your corroding neurons and open a whole new world of excitement. To learn more about Ham Radio, go to helloradio.org.
Side effects of ham radio usage include mental stimulation, desire for education, new career paths, understanding of technology, and cases of addiction have been reported. If you experience any of these symptoms, you're welcome.
Ham Radio. It's not your granddaddy's radio anymore.
Freedom to soar with the Hawks above Union Square. Boston, birthplace of revolution and complaint. Radio, miniaturized to fit in the pocket of your overalls. Together they spell BostonFreeRadio.com.
Oops, sorry, pushed that mic away a little bit. All right, so welcome back. This is Homeschool Radio on Boston Free Radio.
I'm Carrie.
I'm Lauren. Welcome to our show tonight. You can call us 617-454-4BFR. We believe our phones are working tonight. Feel free to call in for us to test.
Because I think we also have Spice Girls.
Ah, Spice Girls.
So I'm probably dating myself, aren't I? Spice Girls.
We're also available on Skype, Boston Free Radio. We have a Facebook page, Homeschool Radio. You can feel free to chime in there. And if you are over this topic, you can suggest a new one or any ideas for our shows. Because how do we top a crazy topic like this?
Yeah, what are we going to talk about?
I don't know. Baking. Math.
Math. We might have a whole show on math.
And we also have a new email. So, that is your best anonymous bet if you are not comfortable with, having people see your public statements on our Facebook page or being heard over the air. And our email is homeschoolradio999@gmail.com. Yes, so we are happy to hear from people and get your ideas.
There's also something else new.
What?
YouTube. We have our past shows available on YouTube. I tagged all of them as Homeschool Radio.
Woohoo! Yay, Carrie!
So yeah, I think if you go to YouTube, do a search for Homeschool Radio, you should find them. There's 4 shows. I think what I can do after a show is done, give me 2 days.
Okay.
Give me like 3 days. Maybe 3 days tops.
Yeah.
Sunday.
You worked
Sunday. It's kind of a process, but it's getting... Yeah. I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
So,
you worked really hard. A lot of people have asked about archives. This is a bad time for some people, but it's a good time for us to give our kids to someone else. So this is part of the reason for choosing our time slot. But, a lot of people have asked about our archives, and Carrie has worked really hard to find a way to do that at no expense to us. So awesome job, Carrie.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. And it's kind of neat to listen because we don't actually get to listen to our own show. So our topic tonight is diversity, and it generated quite a bit of discussion, but we're just about ready to put on Justin Bieber because the topic has died down. But luckily we did actually, glean a lot of our articles tonight, and so maybe I'll chit chat about that a little bit more, and you have a few more things to add. I think we have one more relevant email that we got that we'll get to in just a minute. Regarding the Black community, a recent article in New England Cable News in March states that in Connecticut, more than 15% of Black students were suspended or expelled last year from school, and more than 10% of Hispanic students were suspended or expelled. Fewer than 5% of white students were suspended or expelled. And, I don't know how that relates to the actual population makeup of the school, but I can understand, really, despite whatever stigma is in non-white community, thinking that homeschool might be a really good option for you.
Absolutely.
It seems like the status quo maybe isn't working. And I think a lot of people with Common Core and this tracking TS Gold stuff are really beginning to question if public school is working for them. I also found an article referenced in one of the articles that I that I posted, but I don't have this article referenced. It's the National Home Education Research Institute. There was a March 11th article by Brian Ray, and it states that the average reading, language, and math test scores of black homeschool students are significantly higher than those of black public school students. And he says, with effect sizes of 0.60 to 1.13, this I think was an actual statistical paper, and it was equal to or higher than all public school students as a group in this exploratory, cross-sectional, and explanatory non-experimental study.
Really?
Furthermore, he says, while controlling for gender of student and family socioeconomic status, being homeschooled had an effect size of about 42 percentile points higher than if public schooled. He says an effect size or change in Z-score of 1.13 if you're into the technical aspects of this paper. For language scores, being homeschooled had an effect size of about 26 percentile points higher than if public schooled. And for math, being homeschooled had an effect size of about 23 percentile points higher than if public schooled.
And this is what community? The black community?
This is in the black community, yes.
Good grief.
This is according to the National Home Education Research Institute.
That is amazing and very telling.
Yes. So then another article that I found, because I was trying to look for cultures aside from, the black community, and there wasn't a whole lot out there. But there was an article from 2008 in the New York Times, entitled "Many Muslims Turn to Homeschooling," and it talks about the desire to retain one's culture and to avoid some of the more corrupting social problems seen as prevalent in public schools. And it's also sometimes seen as a way to concentrate on education while avoiding prejudice against Muslims. However, according to the article, the subject of homeschooling is a contentious one in various Muslim communities, with opponents arguing that Muslim children are better off staying in the system and if need be, fighting for their rights. And so we also had a message from an African-American Muslim family. And she says, a part of why I homeschool is so that my children would be surrounded by affirming messages and not devaluing who they are. And she says, I went to a private school where I was one of very few children of color, and it did much to damage my self-esteem. And she says that despite her intentions, she's finding that they have to be very intentional, and often in the homeschooling world, we feel as much of a minority as I did growing up. I'd love to see more diversity in the homeschooling community. And she also wishes us good luck in our show. So, that was interesting to see. And I think, being part of the majority, it's something that we aren't always aware of. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I'm always appreciative of perspectives that are different than mine, perspectives that I can't necessarily assume.
Right. And that actually reminds me of one of the messages we got on our Facebook page a couple weeks ago from the woman from Russia.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she has the same kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. So she wants to preserve the culture.
Yep.
And sending the kids to school might devalue that.
Right. And the corruption that is present was sort of uncomfortable for her too, and yet she wants to preserve her culture but not feel out of place.
Right. Before we go into another topic, I do want to talk about a community that is part of the homeschooling.
Okay.
Actually, part of all of us.
Right.
And that is there's a group called Boston Area Homeschoolers Queer Straight Alliance. Mm-hmm. And it's for homeschooled kids who are bisexual, gay, and
or straight but aligned.
Straight,
right? Allies of that community, basically.
Right. And we got a statement from a member of this group that talking about their experience of being homeschooled and also in a minority. Mm-hmm. This person is also Mexican, which adds another layer. I would like to read this in full. It's beautifully written, I think.
Right. Sounds good.
Being a Mexican-American bisexual girl who's lived half my life in Arizona, hours away from the border, and the other half in suburban, liberal Massachusetts, I've had my fair share of experience with subtle and not-so-subtle racism and biphobia. I've had personal and uncomfortable situations within the homeschooling community concerning my sexuality. There have been times when I've come out to people and they've asked me if I have been with or dated boys and girls. Since I haven't, I'm apparently not a real bisexual. Do you say these things to hetero 15 or 16-year-olds who haven't dated yet? Well, son, you're only 15 and haven't dated a girl yet. I don't think you're really straight. You must be faking for the attention. No, I don't think so. As a side note, a lot of straight parents and straight people in general tend to over-sexualize the LGBTQAI community, therefore over-sexualizing queer teens, which can be harmful, especially to asexual youth. As stated previously, I'm also Mexican-American. My father was born in, I hope I can pronounce this, and I'm terribly, terribly sorry if I can't, Jalostotitlán, Mexico. My mother in Waltham, I can say that, USA. Within the homeschooling community in particular, I've had people, possibly subconsciously, though that doesn't make it any better, try to whitewash me, almost as if they think that that is what I want. When I speak out about my culture and some of the oppression that I've dealt with, my father has felt with, and the problems I may face in the future, some white parents have tried to comfort me or maybe even defend themselves. I'm going to have to continue this after this break.
Thanks for joining us on Homeschool Radio.
How do you throw a curveball? How do you build a fort? How do refrigerators run? How do fish learn how to swim?
Kids ask a lot of questions.
How high can you jump?
But you don't have to know every answer.
How many phone numbers are there?
Because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.
How do cell phones work?
There are thousands of children in foster care who don't need every question answered.
What's electricity?
They just need you.
What's the moon made of?
For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Is this thing on?
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt, and these are my co-hosts, and we're the Cool Kids Club. Say hi, girls.
Hi, girls.
Ooh. We have a radio show that's on Monday night at 8 o'clock, and we play a lot of cool music, and it's really keen, and I hope that you will listen to it.
I don't like being your sidekick like this. It's weird. Athena and I are like the chorus. You're like, introduce our stuff and talk about it, and we're like, what are we choosing?
Let's do it again.
Cut.
Alexandra, Athena, and Matt can be heard Monday nights at 8 on Boston Free Radio.
Cool Kids Club.
All right, welcome back to Homeschool Radio. Carrie was in the middle of a statement that we got. Can you pick up where you left off?
Yeah, apologize for that. It's kind of hard to time these things.
We aren't the best at timing yet. We'll get there.
So I'm reading a message from a woman who is part of the Boston Area Homeschooling's Queer Straight Alliance, and she is bisexual and Mexican. It says, when I speak out about my culture and some of the oppression that I've dealt with, my father has felt with, and the problems I may face in the future, some white parents have tried to comfort me, or maybe even defend themselves, with words like, you're white enough, and you're not that Mexican, and even you could pass as a white girl, as if I'm ashamed of my ethnicity. This may have something to do with the fact that I am not fluent in Spanish, which used to make me feel very inadequate. These are examples of subtle racism and the most common kind I run into. Maybe you think that by me complaining about things I have to overcome because of my race, I am somehow saying that either I want to be white or I hate white people, when in fact, neither is the case. I am mixed, queer, and proud. Lastly, if you are white, straight, CIS, middle class, able-bodied, or privileged in any way, here's some food for thought. If you aren't part of the problem, why do you jump to defend yourself? Why does it make you so uncomfortable when other races talk about their culture and oppression? So I appreciate that
That's
message.
pretty sophisticated for a kid.
It absolutely is.
All right. Thank you so much for your statement.
And they have a website. It's BAHQSA. If there is anyone interested in looking them up, there's a support group. They have activities. They have get-togethers. It's a good supportive group. And they're great kids.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me that I actually skipped a bunch of stuff on our calendar because I had some stuff out of order, and I skipped ahead to the stuff to try and make it in order, and skipped a bunch of stuff. So on Mondays is the Young Homeschoolers Playgroup at Arsenal Park. Yay, outside park days again.
Yay, warm weather.
Oh my goodness. So Arsenal Park is behind the mall in Watertown, and it starts at 9:30 a.m. That's behind the Arsenal Mall, if you don't know where it is. And people filter in, I guess, for quite some time and linger up to 2 p.m. from what I hear. And so the item that I realized that made me realize I skipped a bunch of stuff is that on Tuesdays, if you are between the ages of 14 and 18, the Boston Area Homeschoolers Queer Straight Alliance invites you to join us for our weekly meetings from 10 to 12. They are currently meeting at the Kickstand Cafe, I believe, in Arlington at 594 Mass Ave. It says until sometime in April. I definitely would check their Facebook page to get any updates, because it looks like they might be going back to the Robbins Library conference room or something sometime soon, but I don't have that information in front of me. On Wednesdays, I think there is still a reservation for Games Day at the Robbins Library in Arlington at the community room at 700 Mass Ave in Arlington, and that's from 12:45 to 2:45 p.m. And starting this past week, the famous Beaver Brook Reservation Homeschool Park Day started up. It starts on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Older kids usually play Ultimate Frisbee. Younger kids sometimes play Capture the Flag. I haven't actually witnessed that yet. But if you're new to this, I just want to say don't be intimidated by the large group of parents at the picnic table by the path and the big trees. And let me just also say that it doesn't matter what race or culture you're from, it's always awkward at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's, when I first went there, I probably didn't talk to another adult soul. But, it takes a little longer to form relationships in the homeschooling community in general. It just, we're navigating ourselves. We're not thrown together with our kids, classmates, parents to, select amongst. You're kind of breaking new ground. So introduce yourself and ask for help if you need to find out where things are. Sometimes if you're up at the playground, it's hard to tell who's there from the neighborhood versus who's there homeschooling. But down at that big picnic table full of people, those are homeschoolers, folks. So they have large fields, a running brook.
I think we have a phone call.
We have a phone call, finally.
Yes, you're on the air. Who's calling?
Hello, are you there?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Who's calling?
Hi. I unfortunately can't hear you very well.
Uh-oh. Okay, you can't hear us. How about now? Can you hear us now better?
That's slightly better.
Okay,
Hello?
We've been having a lot of issues with our phone. I apologize. Would you like to make a statement?
I'm a member of the Boston Area Homeschoolers Queer Straight Alliance, and
awesome.
I think you just read a statement from one of our members,
yeah.
But I just wanted to say that we started the group not really knowing what would be the reaction from the homeschooling community, and we've had both positive reactions and also some negative reactions from the community when we've tried to go out and do events like a bake sale. So I think that the homeschooling community, there are some really positive, people who want more diversity, and then there's also some pushback.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
one thing, you can't make everyone happy, can you?
No, and we do have a long way to go. And all I can say is, homeschoolers are people too, and if we are part of the general population, and unfortunately that comes with some baggage. And I think that we do have a long way to go. And I'm hoping as the years go by, or even as the months go by, things improve, and you find more welcoming situations. But I really appreciate your group.
I would try some cookies.
I would definitely come to your bake sale.
I'm sorry?
I said I would try some baked goods.
Yeah, we would come to your bake sale.
I think you said you came for a bake sale, or you wanted to come for a bake sale. Sorry, I'm still having trouble hearing you, but thank you so much. That's great.
Sure.
Thanks so much for calling. I'm sorry it's still technically challenging here.
No problem. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Have a great
Bye.
night.
Bye. All right. Great. Thank you for calling. That was a good phone call. And we do support that group, the BAHQSA.
You know, they're somebody's kids. Mm-hmm. So think about it that way. So yes, Beaverbrook, just as a finishing touch there, Beaverbrook has a bunch of fields. There are a lot of dogs there, so, keep that in mind. There's a running brook, which is really swift at this time of year, and sometimes there's alewife, but we haven't caught them recently.
Is alewife a fish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they run this time of year.
Huh.
Yep. So the park day runs from 10 to noon technically, but a lot of people stay longer, maybe till around 2. So it's a really great, large homeschool event. And let's see, I think that's it for our calendar items.
I want to thank people for listening. And please join us again in 2 weeks.
It's been an exciting show. We'll have to think of we think we have a good topic for our next show. Thought up actually yesterday at Beaverbrook amongst some parents, and our next topic is going to be the stigma that adults face when they give up careers or just decide to homeschool. So I don't know about most people, but it seems like a lot of people have given up, good careers. They're very educated, perhaps, and people didn't understand why they were willing to do that. So let's talk about that next time. Thanks so much for listening in tonight. We're so thankful to have our listeners and all the folks chiming in this week, and we'll catch you again in 2 weeks. Homeschool Radio. BostonFreeRadio.com. Have a good night, everybody.
Joel, I'm going to the store after. See ya. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night.